What up, Pittsburgh Steelers fans? Matty here with another episode of Steelers War Room. Today on the show, we are looking at the leaders, the NFL leaders, and which Pittsburgh Steelers are NFL leaders in their statistical categories this year. Something a bit different, but at 9-3, it gives you a sense of where the Steelers are at, how they're performing, just how good a season they're having. It's something that I've looked at regularly over each week of the season for like 2 or 3 years now straight, and I don't get to talk about it very often. It's really nice this season that I get to do. But it also shows the evolution of this team from a team that just gets above 500, makes the playoffs, to a team that could legitimately be a contender in the playoffs, as we've seen through some of their wins this season. So we are going to use Pro Football Reference. People don't love the PFF's numbers. I challenge a lot of the numbers. They don't record half sacks. Therefore, we're going to use Pro Football Reference. They're very careful. They don't just upload a box score after the game. Sometimes it takes a couple of days for them to do it. They look at NFL-validated stats. They are the go-to outside of the NFL, NFL-specific stats, but they also track a lot more stats. That's why we're going to use Pro Football Reference. So let's kick off with offensive side first. And really, I just got to pause that one so we don't get any double audio. Looking at the quarterback, Joey Burrow, who the Steelers beat, is having a lot of people saying an MVP level season. Leads in passes completed, leads in pass attempts, leads in passing yards, leads in passing TD. Now, Russell Wilson, we know, has not played the whole season for the Steelers. So you can't expect Russell Wilson to be in these charts. But when you start to look at some elements of the quarterback levels, you start to see Russell Wilson pop up. Quarterback rating, 5th best quarterback rating in the league this year. It has been very hard for the Steelers to have a quarterback regularly get over 100 in that quarterback passer rating, really since Big Ben left, and even Big Ben's last few years, that he didn't get over 100 many times. So I think it was once actually in the last 4 seasons. So I could be standing corrected on that one. But the reality is that we haven't seen this. And to be top 5 in the league demonstrates the level of quarterback play the Steelers have back there with Russell Wilson. The other thing is passing yards per game. Russell Wilson is now averaging 271 yards, 7 yards behind Joey Burrow. That's not bad for a guy that picked up midway through the season. We picked up after 6 games for the Steelers at 4-2 with an unsure set of wide receivers, with a couple of guys still out injured, having come off all the issues that he had coming out of Denver, that were not all of his own fault. Limited preseason with the injury that he had, limited preseason games that didn't appear in them. Like this is really, really good for the Steelers, and it makes the defenses of other teams have to second guess the running back situation. Equally, yards per attempt, 8.7. Just 0.1 below Jared Goff. And look at how well Detroit are playing. They've scored, I think, 3 times now. They've scored over 40 points, 3 or 4 times. Lamar Jackson, 8.7 there. He doesn't throw the football every time either. That's a really good number from Russell Wilson. Really good number. Yards per pass completion, 13.2. Second best in the league. Ahead of Lamar, ahead of Jordan Love, ahead of Purdy, ahead of Winston, who everyone's starting to rate about again. And better than Anthony Richardson. It's really cool to see. Russell Wilson, adjusted yards per pass attempt, even there, he's the second best in the league right now. When you look at net yards per pass attempt, he's also in the top 5 with 7.46. Lamar Jackson, top 7.95. Goff, Love, Purdy are in there as well. You'd expect that. So Russell Wilson, adjusted net yards per pass attempt. Again, this is adjusted, sorry. Again, 4th best in the league. That starts to get pretty technical. But the point being is that Russell Wilson, for stats that aren't based on or going to be heavily weighted by the number of games you've played, he's up there amongst the top 10 and in many cases the top 5 quarterbacks. That is why the Steelers are much more in contention status this year than they have before. Look at this. Passing TD percent, 5.3%. Top 10 in the league, right? And he's only just started cooking, right? I love this. This is really, really important for the Steelers. Now, that's a lot of quarterback stats. If we go to rushing, obviously Saquon Barkley's having an MVP level year. Rushing attempts, Najee, top 5 in the league. Rushing yards, he's not there, okay? He's not. If we go into the actual NFL rushing levels, it'll take a little while to spin up, which is why I wasn't actually going to do it. And then, of course, I got tempted into this. You see Mike Tomlin up there. What a champion. The Najee Harris in there, you look at the yards overall, Najee is down in 11, right? So he could crack the top, he should be finishing the top 8, I think. Personally, I think that's where he'll sit on the season. But right now, he's not there in the top 10, despite having those attempts. But we have also, the Steelers have a very young O-line. There are 2 rookies starting. There's a second-year player starting as well. So from that perspective, you've got a guy like Dan Moore, who's a 4th-round draft pick, who a lot of people, are out on Dan Moore. So really, you look at the line versus a line like Philadelphia, a line like Baltimore's, Detroit's even, it's kind of fair that when you look at Najee and you say, all right, 207, the rush yards, he's 11th on the list. If you go yards per rushing attempt, I think he falls into like the early falls in 4.2. It's not bad. Likewise, the Steelers don't have anyone in the top 10 for rushing yards per game, but you do have a double-headed monster in Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren, and that's a big difference to this running game. The thing is, it's also symptomatic of the fact that they haven't had a passing game. Really, Fields was a rusher there. There wasn't really a strong passing game. And you get Russell Wilson in, and this is going to start to open up. Keeping on the offense, we can then look at receivers, and that includes tight ends. George Pickens, 8th in the league right now. Now, yes, we've got some problems in attitude / the ability to contain himself, but he's having a good year. He really is. And so now it's about, can he actually get it right? There was Kaboli wrote an interesting article in the last 24 hours, depending on when you're listening to this, around the fact that the Steelers have to make a decision before his final year or he'll be a distraction. A lot of people apparently near the team are worried about his attitude and whether he can get it right. It is hard to pay him top 10 receiver money based on his overall rookie production, but this is a really good season for him. And, it's demonstrative of having a really good quarterback as well. So we move on to yards per reception. I thought he's out of that now. Out of receiving yards per game. That's the thing. It's not been a sustained passing game. So that's the challenge that the Steelers have. Points scored. Chris Boswell's there. We know he's won a couple of games now for the Steelers this season. 128 points. Massive from him. Boz is just the best kicker in the league, finally getting the recognition of that, which is awesome. And he's going to be crucial in the playoffs as well. If you look at all-purpose yards, they don't count more than the top 10. I think Najee's actually not doing too badly on those overall. If you look at kick return and punt return, now this is something we've not been able to really talk about for the Steelers in a long time. But what we can now look at is the overall, the punt returns, the punt return yards. Calvin Austin, 1 punt TD. That's all there is in the league. There's 5 guys that have it this season. That is awesome there. Calvin Austin is 5th in the league for the most punt return yards. He's 8th for the most attempts. Now, that's not like great all the time, but it does because of where the Steelers are putting the pressure on the other team. That's awesome, but it's not necessarily like he's running in them all the time for TDs. But if he finished the year with 2, that would be a stellar result. But he has had 21 punt returns so far on the season. Longest punt return, he's 3rd on the list. So this is the special teams has been 8th all year, and he's a big part of that. The returning game was a problem for the Steelers going back to the Ryan Switzer, electronic football man. Calvin Austin, 11.4 yards per punt return, and then you've also got him when you do the combined, kick and punt returns together. Yeah, that's when he gets up there as well. So it's kind of exciting when I think about where the Steelers are sitting right now. Field goals made. Boswell, 34 from 37. That gives him a 91% rating, considering he's had the most attempts and he's made the most amount. That is awesome. If you round up to nearest percent, it's 92%. Incredible. So this is why I'm saying with the Steelers, it's been interesting. Oh, and I can't forget the defensive side of things as well. Let's go through it. So I said this going into the season. I said Dante Jackson will get 5 to 7 interceptions. I definitely said +5. I'm pretty sure I said at one point he could get up to 7. He's sitting at 5 interceptions. Beanie Bishop's in the top 10 with 3. So that's really, really cool. Interception return yards, Dante with 88, 5th best in the league because he's had 5 interceptions. So that's pretty cool. We look at, let's go to tackles for a loss. TJ, equal leader with Max Crosby, although he's in a better position to make them in the run game a lot of the time because he's a defensive end in a 4-3. But TJ Watt, 16 tackles for a loss, above Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett get effed. Forced fumbles, TJ, the leader there. Myles Garrett with 3. Again, Myles Garrett get effed. When we look at sacks, he's in there at 9.5. He's gaining ground again, only half a sack behind Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett get effed. I'm not going to go through safeties. There's only 5 safeties, and there's no Steelers player there. But pulling that all out, what you can sense from the Steelers is that there are Steelers across offense, defense. There's at the quarterback position, at the running back position, at the wide receiver position, at the kicker. We've got the best kicker in the league. We've got the best pass rusher in the league. We've got one of the best corners in the league now in terms of production. It's very easy to look and sort of at statistical numbers versus looking at tape. But I do feel like there's a lot of, content out there around looking at the tape. And Steelers did this weekend. Steelers did that weekend. This is a good measurement of what they've done consistently. And in Russ's case, what he's been able to do and the change he's been able to shift when you look at per game stats and you look at like ratings and stuff like that, because he hasn't played the full season. And I can tell you, if you go back and compare this year on year, the Steelers have not been in this position since about 2017. And look at how far they went that season. This is demonstrative of several things. Omar Khan and Andy Weidel and the rest of the Steelers front office, as I like to say when I do sometimes the intro, that's what this Steelers War Room series is focused on. But basically, they've put together definitely a winning roster. Mike Tomlin on top with, I'm not going to necessarily credit the OC and the DC because I think it's the players they've got. I'm still critical, definitely still critical of Austin. I think Arthur Smith's still proving himself. But you can say Danny Smith is doing a really good job in terms of special teams alongside Mike Tomlin. This team is a lot more well-rounded than something we like to give it credit for. And I think at 9-3, it's kind of been that aha moment across the league. The Steelers are here to win and to win this season. I definitely for re-signing Russ. I know that can be controversial, but I think we sign Russ. If we lose Fields, we lose Fields. You sign Russ, 2-year deal, make it team option on the second year. You backload it, but bring him back because if this team can run it back again, this is going to be good. And with another draft class and a fit for Tanu, a couple of other guys, special teams aces that I think could be up their sleeve, and guys like Ryan Watts, this team could keep really building. But you let me know in the comments, is there one of these statistical categories or leaderboards that you're particularly impressed with, that you particularly love, that makes you really happy? Is there areas where you just don't think it matters? You let me know in the comments. As always, go Steelers.